You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 86. Less, quote unquote, healthy post-pandemic. Is it because of weight? Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Bonjour, hello, welcome to this episode. So pleased to have you here. How are you doing? I hope life is wonderful. We're in a heat wave at the moment in Vancouver. It's so hot. Actually, I say that, I'm like, it's so hot. No human being can live with these temperatures. And then I talk to people in the States, and I'm like, yeah. So obviously, because I never know when people are like, oh, it's 100 degrees in the States. I'm like, oh no, 100 Fahrenheit. I'm like, that's probably like 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know what the equivalent is. It's not. So hot here, we're at like 30 degrees. This weekend it's going to be 34 degrees. So let's see, 34 Celsius to Fahrenheit is 93. So I'm sure a lot of you will be like, 93 Fahrenheit is nothing, you silly person, Victoria. But listen, I'm Irish, I'm British. I have see-through skin. And in Vancouver, we don't have AC. We don't have air conditioning. And yesterday, get this, where the window washers were coming. So we have to keep our windows closed all day. And I work from home. And the chair that I work from is a leather chair. And I was sweating my floppy tits off. And these motherfuckers didn't even come and wash my fucking windows. They've missed them. So they're going to have to come back another day and do them. I'm like, no. Oh, so sad. But hey, thank you for all the love and support you all have been sharing, sending, giving, all that jazz. I feel really appreciated. So I've been getting PayPal donations. I've been getting lovely messages. I have been getting podcast reviews, and it makes my brain happy. So I'm just going to read out a couple of reviews that I got recently. First one here, 5 stars, OVS. Amazingly authentic podcast. I recently discovered Fierce Fatty, and it's the most liberating and useful thing I've ever heard. There are lots of great podcasts about anti-diet and haze ideas, but Fierce Fatty gets straight to the heart of things and tells it like it is. No BS. I felt like Victoria was speaking directly to me. It really helped me shift my perspective on my body and society, because I'm already a more confident person because of it. Thank you very much. Let's see this other one. I don't know if I've shared this one yet. It's a bit little. Let me, here we go. Here's another one. 5 stars. Love your show. I came across your show when I was searching for ED recovery podcasts. Absolutely love your positivity and humor. I listen as I walk my dog Hunter or Humber. the screenshot is blurry. So Hunter or Humber? I think Hunter. I have been struggling with an ED for over 2 years, and I am starting to make steps in the right direction. Listening to you describe many of the things that I do as part of my ED, I have really started to realize how silly my beliefs are in believing diet culture rather than trust my own body. So thank you. Thank you very much for those reviews. And if you want to support me, you can do that in a couple of ways. So if you want to send me a donation over PayPal, I'll share a link in the show notes. Show notes, you can get to fiercefatty.com/086 for episode 86, or just fiercefatty.com/podcast, and it will take you to the most recent podcast. You can do that, or you can write a review. Both of those things will really help me. Writing a review on whatever platform that you listen to the show is really, really helpful. And especially because Apple, they show only the reviews that are from your local area. So if you live in like Sweden or whatever, say if there's no reviews of the show, then it's less likely that people in Sweden are going to listen to it. But if you're listening in Sweden, go and leave me a review. I don't know if I've got any Swedish reviews. I know I have Swedish listeners. I've got listeners all over the world. So yeah, go leave a review. That would make my heart pitter patter. I'd love you forever. Another update is that, okay, you need to keep this on the DL. Don't be telling any of the trolls, all right? I have now added a search function on the podcast page. So if you want to go and listen to, not podcasts, you can go and look for anything that I've ever written or said about a certain topic. So if there's a certain topic that you're looking for, then you can go to the podcast page, and right at the top of the page, there's a search bar. Now, I used to always have a search bar on the main page of my website, but here is, what it's like being fat on the internet is I'm constantly having to change the URL of my quiz, my Fierce Fatty quiz, because trolls get their hands on it, and then I get hundreds and literally thousands of trolls doing the Are You Fatphobic quiz and plugging up my email with all of their abuse. And they leave they'll leave their email address as something abusive at fuckyou.com, and so it means I have to pay for it. And so I change the URL for the quiz all the time. But what they were doing in the past was just using the search function to find the quiz. So it didn't matter that I changed the URL. So I took the search function off, and I've had it off for probably a year, 6 months, because I'm fed up with the trolls getting hold of the stuff. And so now I thought, you know what, I really want you to have the search function, because I want you to be able to find stuff. And I've done 86 episodes now of the show, and I have got lots of blog posts and all that type of stuff. I've been doing this for years now, and so I want you to be able to find the information you need. And so I thought, if I put it on the podcast page, I don't think the trolls are going to be that invested in trolling me to listen to the podcast. I might be wrong. A troll might be listening, being like, ha ha ha, she's shared her secrets now. Now I know how to fuck with her. But fingers crossed, please don't do that if you're a troll. You can just find the search function on my podcast page. So, little secret. Don't tell anyone else. Just keep it secret, and go. You can go and search for anything that you're looking for help with. Okay. And I tested it today, and I was like, yeah, it works. Just, putting in words like fuck and cheese and whatever, and seeing what came up. And I'm like, stuff comes up, yeah. I talked about goat's cheese one time. So the title of our podcast today is Less, quote unquote, Healthy Post-Pandemic. And I just want to point out, it's not post-pandemic, right? But I'm trying to use kind of common language so that this is more searchable. But, we're not post-pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. And as well, many other countries are really, really in it and really struggling. And it's only, I live in Canada, and because of the privilege of living in Canada, things are getting a lot better. And I guess in other countries like the US and the UK, But some countries, that's not the situation for them. So I just want to recognize that. But using that word post-pandemic, those words post-pandemic, just so we kind of, a snapshot, easy can see what we're talking about here. So what I'm talking about here is people feeling like, we're kind of, we're coming to the tail end of this, hopefully, fingers crossed. Oh my God, I just said, I said that is, don't, pandemic gods, don't change things. We're coming to the end of this, and kind of people are trying to go back to quote unquote normal. And I have seen everywhere people being like, okay, well, I've really, I've got so unhealthy during the pandemic, and I've put on weight and blah, blah, blah. And I'm seeing a lot of people with fears and worries about that. And also I had a group call with my members of Fierce Fatty Academy today. And we were talking about how we are blaming changes that we see in our body. So the way that they function, the way that they look, our bodies and our and abilities on fatness. And so, I thought, I need to talk about this. Because people are making the conclusion that because their body has changed, and if they happen to have put on weight, well, ipso facto, it's because they've put on weight. Which makes sense, right? Why would they not? Why would you not come to that conclusion when we live in this this society that tells us that weight is to blame for everything, right? So, so there's the types of things that I'm seeing online is like people saying, I must get healthy and lose weight because I can't run 10K now without getting out of breath. And it's because I put on 3 pounds in the last year, and it's not because I haven't run in 18 months. It's because I've put on 3 pounds or 30 pounds or whatever. And in my brain, I'm like, is it? Question mark, is it? And if your abilities have changed since being in lockdown and you happen to have put on weight, then that can be really distressing. And if you're doing this work of unlearning fat phobia and you have put on weight and your abilities have changed, your body looks different, then that's going to shake your brain, right? That's going to make you say, oh my God, like what was I thinking? You're doing this stuff, like I need to really get back on it and start being healthy. And I think that's a pretty normal experience and normal feeling to have. And, society blames weight on everything. So, of course, our brains are going to be like, it's because I'm fat. It's because I'm fat. I mean, I used to study Japanese like 10 years ago. I studied Japanese for a little while. And since then, about 10 years ago, I stopped practicing it, right? And also, I put on weight. So, it's 100% my weight that has stopped me knowing Japanese, right? So if I lose weight, then I'll start to remember Japanese words. Isn't that right? No, of course not. But, it seems so like, well, obviously, no, it's not because you put on weight that you stopped understanding Japanese words. It's because you hadn't practiced Japanese in 10 years, dipshit. Like, of course you're not going to remember if you don't practice it. And so, of course, our bodies are going to be like, less capable if you stop doing the types of physical activities that you used to do. Like, our bodies they're not these magic things that are just going to forever remember how to be strong or whatever it is that you were doing. But we see that correlation. We see that increased body size and we're like, oh, it's the weight. But I do want to say, like, sometimes if you do have extra weight on your body, sometimes you can't do certain things because you have more adipose tissue. So say, for example, you have a larger belly now. Well, if you have more adipose tissue on your belly area, you're not going to be able to maybe, I don't know, say if you could twist your body up and do some yoga and whatever. If you have an extra volume there, then it's going to be different, right? And is that to be expected? Is that reasonable? And is it that much different, like, or is it different enough to be noticeable and therefore be distressing? So, yeah. So if you want to improve your fitness post-pandemic, and you're feeling like, okay, well, if I lose weight, then I'm going to improve my fitness. What we know is that chances are we can't lose weight, right? And only a very, very small portion of people who go on a diet can lose weight. And if you want to, whatever it is that you want to improve, like if you want to improve your stamina or your, strength or your flexibility, or you just want to have good, happy juices going into your brain from doing the movement that you like to do, whatever it is, then do that outside of focusing on your weight. And, so if you do want to improve your health, good for you. If you don't, good for you. Neither is morally superior or inferior. And, even if the weight is to blame, so even if you were able to, I don't know how you would do this, look at all of the evidence and experience and do a study on yourself and be like, okay, the changes in my quote unquote health are definitely due to the fact that I have more adipose tissue on there. I don't think that you could do like a study to prove that, because, we've been through so much in the pandemic. There's so many different things that are going on, and we ignore things like what our mental health, what impact that has on our physical health. And so even if some way that you were able to prove, okay, right, 100%, this is due to me having more adipose tissue on my body, well, we can't get rid of it, right? It's very, very unlikely that you will be able to lose weight and keep it off long term. It's just, we know this, right? We know this. And so what can you do? You can't, if it is down to weight, and that's very hard to come to that conclusion, we can't lose weight. So what's the option? The option is to maybe support yourself where you are, and give yourself some compassion and kindness, and realize that it's actually a very complicated subject. It's a very complicated subject. And, it might be even more distressing being in your body if you've put on weight, if you can feel a new roll. Like say if you can feel a new fat roll, or you can feel, oh, my arm is bigger than it used to be, and I can feel it touching my sides, and that is really distressing. And yes, absolutely, it is. It's jarring if your body has changed and you can physically feel it. And it's distressing. It can be, it can not be. But I like to think about it as, I don't know if you ever had braces, the braces that you have on your teeth. I don't know if you call that something different in other countries, but we call them braces in the UK, to straighten out your teeth. I remember when I first got braces, I felt them and I was like, how the fuck am I meant to talk, eat, walk, blink with these fucking like giant structure jutting from my teeth? It is not possible. And I remember the next day at school just having my hand over my mouth, being so embarrassed by it. And one of my friends, I remember Kadeen, she was just like, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You're lucky that you've got braces. It's no big deal. Just smile. And I was like, okay. And I learned to kind of embrace it and just move on with it. But for a long time, it was they felt giant in my mouth. They felt like they were 57 million times bigger than they actually were. And really, it's kind of a small thing, but it felt huge and was distracting. And just made me think about it all the time. I couldn't not think about the fact that I had braces because they were right there. And eventually that feeling went away because it became normal. And I remember when I got my braces off, maybe like 2 years later, when they came off, and it was like, whoa, look at all this space in my mouth. I can fit like 25 fists in there now. Well, like, what am I going to do with all this? You know, I've got all this space where my braces used to be. And then that became the new normal. I'm sure if I put anything like my mouth now, then it would feel really weird. And so, yes, of course, if your body has changed and you can feel it and you feel uncomfortable in your body, that's to be expected. So what can you do to feel more comfortable in this moment? What can you do to support yourself? What exactly is the most triggering for you? Is it wearing certain clothes? Is it doing certain activities? Can you remove, reduce, protect yourself? So can you remove the stimuli? Can you reduce your exposure to it? And if not, can you protect yourself from the effects of that? Remove, reduce, protect. So I just want to read you a little excerpt from lindobacon.com, and this is titled The Haze Manifesto. Haze, H-A-E-S, Haze is health at every size. And so just so that we've got it in our brains about, instead of blaming weight for everything, you know, let's have a little, get comfortable. Let me read you something, okay? So health at every size, the new peace movement. We're losing the war on fatness. Fighting fat has not made the fat go away. We're losing the war on fatness. By the way, that's kind of in Lindo's work. They talk about how that statement is bullshit. But there's not the brackets here, like, oh, by the way, that's bullshit here, but I just wanted to point it out, but they do mention that. So fighting fat has not made the fat go away. However, extensive quote-unquote collateral damage has resulted. Food and body preoccupation, self-hatred, eating disorders, weight cycling, weight discrimination, poor health. Few of us are at peace with our bodies, whether it's because we're fat or because we fear becoming fat. It's time to withdraw the troops. There is a compassionate alternative to the war, health at every size, which has proven to be much more successful at health improvement and without the unwanted side effects. The scientific research consistently shows that common assumptions underlying the war on fatness just don't stand up to the evidence. Okay, first assumption, the O words. The O word people die sooner than leaner people. So fat people die sooner than thinner people. False. Almost all epidemiologic studies indicate people in the quote-unquote overweight or moderately quote-unquote obese categories live at least as long or longer than people in the quote-unquote normal weight category. The most comprehensive review of the research pulled data from 26 studies and found quote-unquote overweight to be associated with greater longevity than quote-unquote normal weight. And just continuing there, that's just more stuff about that. Assumption, being fat puts people at significant health risk. False. This word every fucking time. Epidemiological studies rarely acknowledge factors like fitness, activity, nutrient intake, weight cycling, socioeconomic status when considering connections between weight and disease, yet all play a role. When studies do control for these factors, increased risk of disease disappears or is significantly reduced. What's likely going on here is that these other factors increase disease risk at the same time they increase the risk of weight gain. Next, assumption. Anyone who is determined can lose weight and keep it off. False. The vast majority of people who try to lose weight regain it regardless of whether they maintain their diet or exercise program. This occurs in all studies, no matter how many calories or what portions of fat, protein, carbs are used in the diet, or what types of exercise programs are pursued. Many studies also show that dieting is a strong predictor of future weight gain. Assumption. Weight loss will prolong life. False. No one has ever shown that losing weight prolongs life. Let me just repeat that. No one has ever shown that losing weight prolongs life. Some studies actually indicate that intentional weight loss increases the risk of dying early from certain diseases. Assumption. The only way for fat people to improve health is to lose weight. Most health indicators can be improved through changing health behaviors regardless of whether weight is lost. For example, lifestyle changes can reduce blood pressure, largely or completely independent of changes in body weight. The same can be said for blood lipids. Improvements in insulin sensitivity and blood lipids as a result of aerobic exercise training have been documented even in persons who actually gained body fat while participating in the intervention. Assumption. Health is declining as a result of an fatness epidemic. They use the O word, but I just don't. I just want to use them. Okay, so this is where they are saying, oh yeah, by the way, it's bullshit. So false. While it's true that we're moderately fatter than we used to be, life expectancy has increased dramatically during the same time period in which our weight rose, from 70.8 years in 1970 to 77.8 years in 2005. Oh, I wonder what it is now. Because this book was written 10 years ago, and Linda has got 2 more books since this book came out. So, yeah. Anyway, that's right. Government statistics predict that the average kid can now expect to live almost 8 years longer than their parents. Not only are we living longer than ever before, but we're healthier than ever, and chronic disease is appearing much later in life. Death rates attributed to heart disease have steadily declined throughout the entire spike in fatness. Both the World Health Organization and the Social Security Administration project life expectancy to continue to rise in coming decades. We are simply not seeing the catastrophic consequences predicted to result from the fatness epidemic. And just to finalize here, blame economics. Why do these faulty assumptions continue to proliferate, and why isn't the reality more widely known? There can only be one explanation when science so blatantly contradicts popular thought: economics. There is a huge industry that benefits from widening the boundaries of what is considered a problematic weight, including weight loss centers, supplement makers, drug companies, physicians, and purveyors of diet books, foods, and programs. Even scientists benefit by getting research grants and serving as consultants, or by running weight loss centers at universities. Convincing us of a crisis can also aid government agencies in obtaining congressional funding, and expert panels that create public policy and determine research funding are populated by individuals with financial conflict of interest. That said, I do not believe that those engaging in this damaging paradigm are part of a widespread conspiracy. We are all raised with the assumption that fat is bad and permanent weight loss can be achieved through dietary change and exercise. These assumptions are so strongly part of our cultural landscape that they are regarded as self-evident, and few even consider questioning them. As a result, many well-intentioned, caring people unknowingly collude and transmit this cultural bias. Also, there is little reward for questioning these assumptions other than peace of mind. Indeed, for a professional to challenge these ideas is tantamount to career suicide. This is in stark contrast to the large financial status incentive for supporting the old paradigm. So that's from Linda Bacon. I'll link to it in the show notes. Linda Bacon has so many resources and links to literally hundreds of items of research. And actually what Linda was saying at the end of that makes me remind me of just this week, a researcher, a scientist came out. I'm going to try and find it on their name. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I think it's in my Fat Studies group. Oh yeah, okay, so Catherine Flegel. So Catherine Flegel, I'm going to link to this in the show notes too. This is, woo, Banas. So Catherine Flegel, in 2010, alongside colleagues, published a paper about, let me see if I can find the title of the original paper, basically saying, fatness is actually not that bad, like chill. And for years have sustained attacks. So this is the beginning of the paper. So the paper Catherine Flegel wrote, the O Wars and the Education of a Researcher, a Personal Account. Let me just read the beginning of this. A naive researcher, that's who she's talking about herself, published a scientific article in a respectable journal. She thought her article was straightforward and defensible. It only used publicly available data, and her findings were consistent with much of the literature on the topic. Her co-authors included 2 distinguished statisticians, and to her surprise, her publication was met with unusual attacks from some unexpected sources within the research community. These attacks were by and large not pursued through normal channels of scientific discussion. Her research became the target of an aggressive campaign that included insults, errors, misinformation, social media posts, behind-the-scenes gossip, and maneuvers and complaints to her employer. The goal appeared to be to undermine and discredit her work. The controversy was something deliberately manufactured, and the attacks primarily consisted of repeated assertions of preconceived opinions. She learned firsthand that the antagonism that could be provoked by inconvenient scientific findings. Guidelines and recommendations should be based on objective and unbiased data. Development of public health policy and clinical recommendations is complex and needs to be evidence-based rather than belief-based. This can be challenging when a lot of hot-button topic is involved. And it goes on, and actually Catherine does so there's a famous study called Mokdad et al., which is basically says the results of this study says estimated fat associated deaths in 2000 is 365, and so that is like the cornerstone. This Mokdad went after Catherine Flegel, because Flegel looked at the data and said that actually instead of 365,000 deaths because of fatness in 2000, it was actually 112,000, which is still, it's very hard to count, to prove that. Definitely, but 1/3 of what this Mokdad was saying, and the research that Flegel did was way better. And so it's like there's like a table here of saying what Mokdad did, which was not that great, and then what Flegel did, which was look at the data again and find the errors, and the stuff that people were doing to her to try and fuck with her. And also, this is so interesting, goes into the things that people did studies on, they did rebuttals on her study, and their rebuttals were, like, she says ABC and ABC is wrong. And actually then, that in this thing that I'm talking about, Catherine will be like, actually, I didn't say ABC, I said CDE. And so what you're talking about is bullshit. Anyway, so there's lots of different things there, and it's really interesting that this has been going on for a decade of people harassing her, attacking her, because they have an interest to make sure that this person is their work is not seen as legitimate, when it's like Catherine says at the beginning of the introduction here, is that we need clinical recommendations that are evidence-based rather than belief-based. And that's all Catherine did, is she looked at evidence rather than beliefs. And exactly what Linda was saying, that there is unfortunate outcomes for people who do speak up. And as well, like Lindo says, it's not like this conspiracy theory where people are like, oh, we know that this is wrong, but we're going to just do it anyway. But I genuinely believe that Mokdad and any of the other people who think that fatness means that people spontaneously combust, I think they genuinely do believe that. And I feel like they genuinely feel that saying that this issue isn't as serious as we have been led to believe is very dangerous. And so I believe that they're human beings and they're doing their best, but I also believe that they're influenced by what their work is. Like, I mean, if you're an O-word researcher, if you are an O-word doctor, how the hell are you going to, after years and years and years of one line, of one thought on fatness is bad, how are you going to be able to turn around and be like, oh yeah, turns out I've been fucking wrong all this time. Actually, it turns out that I've got lots of bias against fat people, even though I said that I was trying to help them. I was trying to help them, but really my own bias and fat phobia meant that I was doing the opposite. Like, how can you get to that conclusion? I think you couldn't, because we all want to believe that we're good people and we're doing our best. And I think it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult for these O-word researchers to be like, everything that you believe is not based in evidence. That must be very, very difficult. But still, let's have more compassion for people like Catherine Flegel, who go out there and are crusading and standing up to these. Oh, that must be really, really hard. So I'll link to that in the show notes. And something as well that I want to remind you, we've spoken about this a lot, which is what makes up health. And what makes up health is actually very, very complicated. And only around, so 36% of what makes up an individual's health status is your own behaviors. And within that subsection of your own behaviors, there's 6 different things, and one of them is food, and one of them is movement, and the other ones are things like sleep, your mood, your psychological assets, things like that. And so that makes up the 36%, and risk-related behaviors. And so if you have access to guns, if you're having less safe sex, if you are doing donuts at the local supermarket in your car and doing 500 miles an hour down the road, like, that's individual behavior. And then the rest of it is medical care, environment, social circumstances, genetics, and biology. So that's things like how much do you have access to healthcare? Are you literate around health literacy? What is your race and your gender and your citizenship status, and have you been in the army and the military and things like that? So it's like really, really complicated. So just a reminder, in case that's not stuck in your head, and you're like, to be healthy, I need to not be fat. Well, one, it's very unlikely that you can, if you're fat, become not fat. Even more unlikely if the higher your weight. And And what's that going to achieve? Like, is that going to make you healthy? Well, when we know what makes up the determinants of health, there's not much evidence. And there is evidence to show that trying to lose weight is not going to be helpful. So another thing I wanted to talk about is, with this leaving your house and going to see people, is that a lot of people are experiencing that fear and that anxiety about going out and seeing people and people judging them, and being social and going back to work and all that jazz. And this is a unique situation. I mean, it's not many of us who can say that we've had to be away from people for this amount of time and not see them, apart from like our heads on Zoom or whatever. And I mean, I have been experiencing this kind of, maybe not to the same degree, but just a general anxiety of doing the things that I have done lots of times before. So last week I went out for dinner with 3 friends, and so there was going to be 4 of us. I've been out for dinner with one friend, right? And so I would just do like solo, not solo, with one other person. And so the idea of being with 3 other people the day of this dinner thing, I was like, I feel anxious. What is going on? Like, we were going to this place which is half a block from my house, so I didn't have to worry about like finding parking or where it was or anything. And I looked at the menu, knew what I was going to eat, and I was like, wow, I'm experiencing some anxiety. And I see these people, like I met, there's a couple that we went with who is people I've met at the dog park, and so they know me, they know what I look like. But what if it was people that I haven't seen in a while? That would probably be different. And what if I didn't like my body? And that would be different. So when I got to the dinner, like immediately I felt fine. But I said to them, listen, I felt a bit anxious about tonight, which is very unlike me. And they were like, wow, that's really interesting. And we can totally, get that. And I think it's 100% normal to feel that way. And it's normal to worry about being judged in this really, really unique situation, which puts on extra stress and pressure. Never mind when we normally are worried about being judged. Never mind there's a whole other layer of stuff, and not even one layer of stuff. There's so many layers of stuff that's happening in our brains right now, and the amount of stress we've experienced. And I feel like so many of us are worried. We're so worried. And which leads me to believe that the people that we're worried about seeing, if so many of us are worried, leads me to believe that the people that we're worried about judging us are too worried. They're worried. If a lot of us are worried, then the people that we're worried about are probably worried about us judging them. And so they're probably like, oh man, I haven't seen Victoria in a while, and she's probably gonna notice that I've put on weight or think that my clothes are shit or whatever. I would hope that my friends would know that I'm not like that. I mean, they would. But, we've got a variety of people in our lives. And so knowing that the person that you're going to see is probably worried too, maybe that will be able to give you yourself some more compassion. And as well, I feel like this is a really good indicator. Like this, it feels like this is really like blown up, and as in like it's really like put a magnifying glass on certain relationships. And you see a lot of people are like, now I've realized that I don't want to do that thing anymore. I don't want to, I've realized what makes me happy and what doesn't make me happy. And I've got out of the rut of everyday living, and I've realized this and that. And so if there are certain people in your life that you're like, okay, well, seeing this person feels okay, but seeing that other person, I know that they are a judgmental motherfucker. I think that could be really, really helpful evidence to show to you that maybe hanging out with the person who is really, really judgmental, and they are, is maybe not the best for your mental health. And should they be one of the first people that you see post-pandemic when you're kind of at your wobbliest? Probably not. Should they be someone that you either set boundaries with, have a conversation about that judgmental side, or reduce contact with, or just cut them off completely? I don't know. But it's questions to ask yourself, right? And the idea of, okay, the world is now open. Now go and do everything. It's too much. It's too much. You know the analogy that I love, the to learn to swim, reading a book, but then you need to get in the water. But with an asterisk there. The asterisk is you need to get into the water in a way that is doable. So don't jump into the deep end and expect yourself to be fine. Just tinkle your toes in the water. And so when you're getting back into normal life again post-pandemic, maybe the first thing that you do isn't like a house party with 10 people, because that's probably, it sounds like a lot, doesn't it? Maybe that's the fifth thing you do. Maybe the first thing is dinner with 2 people, or going to the cinema with a friend, or something that is easier than something that's kind of a little bit more scary. And then you'll get back to normal, like the whole braces thing. Soon, to begin with, it's going to feel really uncomfortable, but then it's going to feel normal again. And so right now it feels uncomfortable for so many people, but before you know it, you're not even, you probably won't even remember that it was kind of weird to get back to normal life post-pandemic, in years to come, you'll just remember, the key things about the pandemic, like Tiger King. I watched a Louis Theroux documentary about the Tiger King documentary. I just fucking hate Tiger King. He's a piece of shit. And he's got this like cult status of like, oh, he's so funny and quirky, but he's like, and he's a straight up animal abuser. And there was a podcast about Tiger King that came out before the documentary, and the podcast was way less favorable about the things that he was doing with animals, which was totally fucked up. Anyway, so I watched the Louis Theroux documentary with that VPN I told you on BBC. Watched it on the BBC iPlayer, and I really like Louis Theroux. I think I used to fancy him for years because he was kind of weird looking, and now I'm like, he's not weird looking. I think he's pretty normal, average Joe Schmo looking. But I think because he was a bit of a nerd, I was like, I would always fancy people who were a bit weird or quirky, because I was like, oh, because he's a bit of a nerd, it's more likely that he's going to fancy me, versus I wouldn't fancy the very, very traditionally hot celebrities, because there's no chance I'd get with them. But there's no chance that I could get with Louis Theroux anyway. When am I going to bump into Louis Theroux? He's married. We live in different countries. He's a celebrity. But this is my child mind. Louis Theroux and Paul Scholes. If anyone knows, in the UK in the 1990s, Paul Scholes was a ginger footballer. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to fancy the footballers that all of everyone else fancies. I'm going to fancy the ginger, because in the UK everyone was like, oh, ginger is unattractive. I think it's great personally. Yeah, so I'd fancied Paul Scholes because I had a better chance of getting with him. Clearly, I was like a 12-year-old girl. I had zero chance of getting with Paul Scholes, and also Frankie Dettori. So Frankie Dettori was a jockey. Frankie Dettori. I'm going to look up his name. Frankie Dettori. Yeah. So he's an Italian horse racing jockey, because he is short. Actually, he's not that short. 1.63 meters. What is that? 163 in feet. In feet. 5'3". Yeah, okay. So I fancied Frankie Dettori because he was 5'3", and I thought I might as well fancy a celebrity who's 5'3", because more chances that I would be able to get with him. My logic as a kid. Did you all do that? Did you? I think most kids fancied the one that everyone else fancied, or maybe not. Message me if you, please message me if you fancied someone who you had decided was less attractive, and all of these people that I'm mentioning, they're they're gorgeous and successful and all of that stuff. But I had decided in my kid brain, oh, those motherfuckers are ugly, and so I'm going to fancy them. And I did fancy them. I fancied them. Actually, the one which wasn't that I fancied, that wasn't, I didn't see as unattractive, was the Danish goalkeeper. What was his name? Danish goalkeeper, Peter Schmeichel. That was it. Peter Schmeichel. He is, yeah, Peter Schmeichel. I'm just googling him, right? Danish footballer. Oh my God. I'm just looking at the picture of him when he was, the age that I fancied him, and it's kind of, funny 90s picture. Anyway, and he was he's 57, right? So he's like, 21 years older than me. And that's who I fancied. And actually the very first thing I ever Googled was Peter Schmeichel. But the internet wasn't working because someone was on the phone. So, yeah. Anyway, side tangent. So I think that was everything I was going to say anyway. Message me if you fancied anyone that you had decided was bad looking because you thought that it gave you a better chance to get with them, like a celebrity. Tell me, I want to know. I want to know. Oh, I had such a good shot with all of those celebrities when I was like 11 years old. I'm sure they would have seen me and gone, whoa, look at her, hubba. Oh my gosh. I was out there trying to steal those men. Oh, what a dingaling. And Peter Schmeichel's you know what? Peter Schmeichel looks a lot like what my dad looked like. Like a younger version of my dad, and that's probably something there about that. Anyway, that's getting creepy. So thank you for hanging out with me today. All of the links that I mentioned, I'm going to put them in the show notes. And I'll see you in the next episode. See you later, Fatty. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.